Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my channel, Confessions of a Preschool Teacher with Jessica. I'm Jessica, and it's so great to have you back with me. As promised, I'm going to upload this video. Now, see what had happened was I'm going to try to upload it tonight because it's Tuesday, right? And it's supposed to be every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, what had happened was I was supposed to actually film it yesterday, which was a Monday, but that didn't happen because, well, life be lifing. So I just had to kind of get it done when and where and how I could. And so if you notice, I got my head all wrapped up. This was supposed to be a video in a different light. I was supposed to be dressed all pretty and have my makeup done. And yeah, that didn't happen because my high porosity hair had other plans. And so I have to moisturize it. And I'm getting in late from work. And so I don't have enough time to moisturize my hair and film the video without missing some sleep. So I'm going to do both. So I'm going to go ahead, moisturize my hair while I talk to you guys about what to expect when becoming a preschool teacher. If you're thinking about becoming a preschool teacher, or you always wondered some of the things you might need to expect before you dive into becoming a preschool teacher, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I have listed 10 things because if I just keep rambling on and on and on, this video is going to be way longer than it needs to be, and we don't want that. And I also have a bonus what to expect at the end of the video. So if you stick around to the end of the video, you get to hear what that bonus is. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So these are in no particular order. These are just some, things that just was coming to mind, and, so I just decided to put them down on paper, but they're in no particular order. You can make up whatever order you want. If you're a preschool teacher already and you know what I'm talking about, then hey, great. And some of these might be, they might not be so surprising, but still, there were things that I didn't expect, or, I might have thought maybe, but yeah, but anywho. So number one is going to be overstimulation. Let me tell you. So when I was a loan officer and I first got married to my husband, I didn't really realize oh Lord, oh gosh. Don't laugh at me, guys. This is terrible. Okay, anyway, we're going to moisturize it. But anyway, I didn't realize what overstimulation was. In fact, at this time, I didn't even have a name for it yet. I just knew when I was living by myself, like before I was married, I would come home and it's like I would just decompress, right? Well, now I know that's because I was possibly overstimulated, and overstimulation is defined as to stimulate psychologically or mentally to an excessive degree. So basically you're just getting too much of something. And I didn't even get any of my, hold that thought 1 minute. Okay guys, I'm back. Okay, so overstimulation is where we stopped off at. So again, as I was saying, when I was living alone, I didn't realize overstimulation was actually a thing. I just knew at the end of the day, working as a loan officer, I was just very tired of talking to people, right? I was just very, I couldn't talk to another person. It was just it was too much, right? And so it didn't really dawn on me until after I got married, because I know my husband, he was very, excited to be married, and so was I. But I noticed when I came home, he always wanted to just talk. And I was just like, I couldn't handle it. I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to need you to just wait a minute and let me, kind of cool down, wind down, coming home from work and all, and, feeling a bit, now I know, overstimulated, right? And so I'd have to have some time to cool down and, get myself together. Well, now as a preschool teacher, fast forward, now as a preschool teacher, I finally know what it is, right? I am overstimulated because when you're in a room with, you know, a bunch of children, and they are, you know, so excited. They're loud, you know, they're always asking questions. They're always, you know, and this is when I worked with 3-year-olds, because I don't work with 3-year-olds anymore. I work with 18 months to 24 months. That is the age I work with. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it's a lot going on. It's a lot of noise, and I'm kind of feeling a little, you know, I can't handle it right now. I mean, and of course, you know, I'm fine now. I've learned how to deal with it. You know, I do some stress management things and stuff like that to help me, you know, get along pretty good. So yeah, great. We've worked it out. We've identified it and we've assessed it, right? But at first, it was just very overwhelming. And one of my love languages is touch. And I never got touched out. But, you know, but when you work with children, children are very, you know, they're very like, I want to love, I want to hug, I want to, you know, I just want to touch you. I want to touch your face. I want to just touch you. And so, you know, for a while it was like, oh no, you know. So when I would come home and my husband would try to touch me or something, I'm just like, oh yeah, I just can't do it. So just expect that you're going to get very, very overstimulated, okay? And you are going to have those days where it's just like when you get home from work that you're probably not going to want to talk much, if at all, you know. And this really, I really feel for my teachers who are parents, because then you have to go home and be parents. You still have to go home and be parents, right? And so like me and my husband don't have any children. Like he has a daughter, but she's like much older, like she's an adult. And I personally don't have any kids. And so I come home to no children, right? Which is great because I work with kids all day. But, you know, so I can only imagine how hard it can be for a teacher who is already overstimulated. She's been in a classroom full of kids, you know, it's been loud, it's been a lot going on, and she's tired. And I'm pretty sure the only thing she wants to do is to come home and rest, right? And so, yeah, so expect to be overstimulated. Expect to feel, you know, overwhelmed at times and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it happens, right? I have to look in my mirror because that is not, this parting is not going to work. But anyway, but yeah, so overstimulation is definitely one. A second thing that you might need to expect when becoming a preschool teacher, you are going to get sick. I don't care how great your immune system is, you are most likely going to get sick. And that is just because of the environment. Like preschools they're just germs, you know. Children are, I love my kids, don't get me wrong. I love my kids, I love my class, but they're nasty. You know, kids, they pick up things, they put things in their mouth, and we try to, and we really try to teach them not to do that. But, you know, but they're little and full of germs. So yeah, so you're possibly gonna get sick. I think it took me, I want to say within your first 2 weeks to a month, maybe it takes some people a little longer. And it's crazy because I've always had a pretty good immune system, right? I've never really had any issues. I barely ever got sick. And I remember the first year working at my preschool, I remember I got sick often that year, actually. I probably threw up more in that year than I ever had in my entire life. Like I was just always getting sick. It was just always something. And so it wasn't until February of 2024 when the final sickness happened to me. I was like, I got some type of gastrointestinal virus, and I think I had a touch of food poisoning because my dumb self already wasn't feeling good. And then I went to Dairy Queen and I ate these tacos with Diablo sauce, or no, ghost pepper tacos or something. And then that same night I got something quick again and I ate a burger from that same Dairy Queen. And then that night I think I woke up because my stomach was killing me the entire night. So I didn't get a lot of sleep. I think I woke up probably around 2 or 3 a.m. just throwing up. It was bad. In fact, it was so bad. I was throwing up for like 3 days straight, every 1 to 2 hours. I had to be hospitalized, and it was so bad, right? It was so bad. But since then, I hadn't really got sick. I got like a tummy bug, probably like 2 months back, probably in May, I think. I got like a tummy bug or something, but it wasn't too bad. I was sick for like a day, and it carried into the next day, and I stayed home to, get some rest and properly recuperate and things like that. But other than that, I hadn't been like super sick. You know what I mean? Not like that. And so, but yeah, you're going to get sick. It's inevitable. Especially, kids are so sneaky. I remember one time, one of my kids, kids have no boundaries, so they're like all in my face. Like I said, they're 18 to 24 months. One of them got me good. Like I thought he was going to put his head to my head, because, he likes doing that. And no, he kissed me in my mouth, and I was like, no, gosh, no. And so, yeah, good Lord. Kids are sneaky like that. And that's how I got the tummy bug. I got the tummy bug after that. So, yeah. So, if you're going to be a preschool teacher, make sure you got plenty of vitamin C and whatever other preventative measures you may have. But moving on to number 3. And I don't know why I have to tell people this, but you're in a preschool. You are going to change diapers, okay? I cannot tell you how I've sat in meetings and my boss literally has to say to people, you do diapers, because there have been some people to work at our preschool to be like, oh, I don't do diapers. And it's like, but you do diapers. We're in a preschool. It's part of the job description. Like, yes, you do. Especially if you work infants, or I'm going to say, especially if you work 2s on down, you definitely do diapers. By the time they hit 3 and 4 and stuff, they're going through potty training, but still, there are accidents and stuff like that. We still have to accommodate with diaper changing and pull-ups and stuff like that. So, and potty training and things like that. So we're still assisting in those areas. But yeah, no, you most definitely do diapers. So if you have a mindset of you don't like diapers and this, that, and the third, oh no. And this, that, and the third, then yeah, being a preschool teacher may not be for you, and that's totally fine. But just know, if you're going to work in a preschool, you're going to do diapers. There's no way around it. Now, unless like one time my co-teacher, she wasn't feeling too good. And so I did tell her, I was like, look, I know you're not feeling too good. You're having an aversion to smells. I will go ahead and do the diapers today. I'll do the diapers, make sure the kids are, diaper changed and all that other stuff. So yeah, those are those courtesies or whatever from one co-teacher to another. So yeah, great. But other than that, no, we do definitely do diapers. Number 4, you will need to actually teach the children something. Okay, so I didn't know that there was a huge difference between just daycare, and preschool itself. A lot of people don't seem to know the difference. So when I was little and I was going to elementary school in Oak Cliff, I used to go to a school called W.W. Bushman back in the 90s. And right next to it was a small house. And I remember it because I remember the lady's name. She was an older lady. Her name was Miss Moffitt. And she watched us after school. It was like, I don't know if it was her daycare, like a personally owned daycare, but it was, she was always there. So I assumed it was hers. For a long time, I thought it was her house. And looking back on it, it might have been her house. I don't know. But anyway, so, I remember when we were kids, she would literally sit us in a room. Make sure we had a snack. If we were there for the summer, she fed us, made sure we didn't die or we didn't kill each other. But she set us in a room in front of a TV with not very many toys, with just us to keep ourselves company. And she would only come in basically to tell us to keep the noise down, or, whatever, or for nap times, she'd lay us on a mat or something during the summer. But after school, I would go there. My siblings were already there because they weren't in school. But, because I was in kindergarten at this time, I believe. I was in kindergarten. And so, yeah. And that is when I think of daycare, that's what I think of. There's no teaching going on. She didn't teach us like that. She didn't interact with us like that. She just literally sat us in a room, told us to watch TV, be quiet, keep the noise down, and threw us a snack and some lunch here and there. But, there was no teaching. A preschool is different. We actually have like a curriculum. We actually have to teach the children. Like I do this thing we call circle time. And during circle time, I like to go over their ABCs and their numbers and things like that. And some people are like, oh, that's so young because they're like 18 to 24 months. It's like, yeah, but you want to introduce them to it, right? And my kids have actually learned to talk in my class. If they come in my class and they don't have very many words, yeah, they learn to talk. They learn to talk. They learn to identify their ABCs, even at 1 and 2 years old, because I teach them. And so please expect to teach the children something. We're not just there to, I'm not just there to watch a kid, or just to watch a kid and, and that's it and I get paid. No, I actually have interactions with the children, and we have to, because I feel like in the past, some people have come to work there at my school and they're not expecting to actually teach. And it's like, no, we teach. We do art projects and things like that, and it's fun. And we make it fun for the children. We do dance times, and we teach them about kindness and things like that, because they're children. You have to teach them things, right? It makes sense, right? So anyway, another thing to expect, noise. Lots and lots of noise. You gotta understand, especially with my age group, there's gonna be noise, okay? Children don't just sit down. I think that that one of the things that I think is just absurd is to think that children are just gonna sit all the time, That's not how children are wired. Children, they have all of this energy, and I see it with my kids. They have all this energy, which is why I love to go outside and why I'm sad when it's raining outside and we can't go outside, because my children have so much energy and they're like Energizer bunnies. I'll be super tired from the night before because, I have grown up stuff to do, and like my day doesn't always just stop when I come home. But, and I might not have gotten a lot of rest. And you know what? Children are not like that. Because I am slurring my words. I'm so sorry. But children are not like that. They are Energizer bunnies. They are always up doing things. They are always up, making noise and, maybe hitting a friend or something. They're kids. They do these things. And so just expect that there is going to be some noise. It is not going to always be quiet. It is not, you might get lucky at nap time if they all go to sleep. And so, hey, you might get lucky there, or save it for your break. And so, yeah. Noise. I don't think I have to spend a lot of time on that because people should know that. Or maybe not. I don't know. Number 6, expect your inner child to make an appearance. It's just hard not to. Think about it. You're with kids all day and you have to, play with them and use your imagination to help them use their imagination, and, you're probably outside playing with them. And let me tell you something. That going outside and playing with them will humble you. Because I know when I first started, I was so out of shape and I had to run around with these young people that are not as old as me, of course not. And this is when I worked with 3s. but they just had so much energy, and I almost died on the playground. Why? Because I was, how old was I at the time? I was 33, 34, 33, about to turn 34. And so, yeah, and I almost died because I was trying to run and keep up with these kids, and I was out of shape, and they were just, they had so much energy. But eventually, you know, I got in shape and everything. It was easier for my inner child to come out and do childlike things. You know, sometimes I roll on the floor with them. I love doing, you know, I love Baby Shark now. It's like club music for children, you know? And so and you start to really love that stuff. And you also rediscover like books from your childhood that they still have today, that they're still reading to children today. Like, there was this one. It's about like a mother and a son. Like she goes in and holds him like every single night. I think it was called like You'll Always Be My Baby or something like that. I just know one thing. It made me cry because, you know, my mom has passed. My mom passed in 2021. And I remember reading the story to my kids and then running out of my classroom because I was in tears and I just missed my mother. And so, yeah. But yeah, your inner child will definitely make an appearance. Hold on 1 minute, guys. All right, sorry guys, fix my camera. My husband called me. So anyway, so yes, inner child definitely will make an appearance, and you will be better for it because I feel like it keeps me younger. Anyway, and I'm a very goofy person. You know, when I worked as a loan officer, I took myself way too seriously. Well, I don't do that at this job because, I just don't. Anyway, moving on. Number 7, cuteness overload. You know what? The infant room is dangerous. It really is. Actually, you know what? My room is dangerous. I used to think 3s were dangerous because, you know, 3-year-olds are still pretty cute, you know? But when you get to like, you know, the infant rooms, the toddler rooms, preschooler rooms, that can be very, very dangerous. Why? Because they're so cute. They are so cute. And it's crazy because they'll do things that are like, you know, they'll jump up on tables. They'll maybe even throw a chair or two. Not always. But you know, or they might bite or hit a friend. But they're so stinking cute. You know, and you just can't help but just smush them. You know, so, you know, you definitely get cuteness overload and a little bit of cuteness aggression. Because, you know, hey, they're so cute. It's just, you just want to smush their cheeks and stuff. But, you know, don't do that. You don't want to do that. But anyway, yeah, they're just like my class. Oh, all the kids in my class are so stinking cute. It just pains me because they are so cute. I'm like, oh my gosh, it gives me baby fever. And then I come home to all the silence and then baby fever leaves. You see? That's how that happens. But anyway, moving on to number 8. Your heart will be softened. Like, definitely. But unfortunately, the downside to that is your heart will also break for these children. Like, I mean, you could be dealing with a kid that is difficult in behavior, but at the same time, when you get to know their situations and why they may be so difficult, or you come across children that have challenging home lives or whatever the case may be, your heart definitely softens towards them, but it also breaks for them, and you feel for them, and it can be very hard. It can be very difficult. Especially when some of the kids come in with, you know, pretty sad stories or whatever. But yeah, it's just be prepared to have your heartstrings tugged on. I mean, you can't really work this business and work in this field and be a heartless person. I mean, if you can, then if you can work as a preschool teacher and you can be heartless, then the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz deserves a heart more than you do. Sorry to say so, but it's true. You know, because these kids, they just like have like really touched my heart, and they are so sweet, you know, and they, like I said, they have their moments, but they're children at the end of the day, and they just make they make me smile, you know. They just do really cute things, but they make me smile. And I have built connections with these children, and I've built relationships with these children and with the families too, you know, not just the kids, like the families as well. You know, the families, they really appreciate, you know, the care and the love that you give to their children, which I am very happy about. I do love the parents from my school because they are very, very grateful. And I'm very grateful to them for allowing me to be a part of their child's life and, you know, to help, you know, bring a, help teach them some things and to be a part of their learning and their experiences. So it's really cool. So I do love that. Number 9. I feel like number 9 is like you see the world different. And it's like so crazy because I know when people say when you become like a mom or a dad of your own kids, you start to see the world a little differently. And that is true. Like I said, I don't have kids of my own, but I feel like as a preschool teacher, even though I don't have children of my own, I still feel responsible for these children when they're in my care, of course. And so I do see the world different. I do see, you know, I do think about, I do think about their protection. I do think, you know, they've got to be protected and watched over at all costs because I would never want anybody to do any harm to these children because I love them and they are my kids and I'm responsible for them when they're in my care, you know, and you just see the world different. You see the world, I don't know, just in a different light. That's all I can really say about it. I want to expound more on it and maybe I will later, but for now, that's all I got, okay? You're just gonna see the world differently, okay? And however that looks like, I can't really describe it to you. However that looks like to you is just how it looks like, but you do definitely see it. I don't see, you know, this is not like my loan officer job where I just go into work and I clock in and I punch in a bunch of numbers and, you know, I'm just making money. This is different. This is a very, very different. This is me having a hand in a child's development. And I do take that very seriously. I do not take it very lightly. I'm always watching, you know, what I say to my children and the tones that I use because I never want it to negatively affect them in any way. And so I'm always very careful about that. And I want them to always come to school and feel safe. And so that should always be your goal as a preschool teacher, always making the children feel safe and always making them feel welcomed and loved as if they were your own. Got it. Anyway, so number 10, that's where I am. 10 is my final one, but remember I have a bonus one, but 10 is my final one. 10. You're probably going to want to quit. It just is, unfortunately, it's just a part of the trade. You're probably going to want to quit. I know and hey, for those of you that see this video that may know me and know where I work, know my boss, whatever, you can tell her because she already knows. But I wanted to quit and I was very candid about that because I had for me, preschool, like being a preschool teacher was a hard transition. Now, mind you, I grew up a latchkey kid, you know? I grew up watching my brothers and sisters. Like, I started watching them when I was 9. We were at home by ourselves when I was 9. And so, yeah, totally get it, you know? And so it's not like I had never been around little children, you know? I've done nursery at church and all this other stuff. It's not like I had never been around children, you know, but this was just on a different level because it was more from a professional standpoint, right? And so and of course there are different rules in place and how to handle the children. And so yes, at first I found it very difficult to adjust because I was born in 89 and I was raised by a Gen Xer and a boomer. And so child rearing when I was a kid was a lot different. Even in the school system, it was a lot different. So sometimes some things I would see the kids doing and how it was handled was a little different for me. And so I just had to really learn how to cope. But at first, it was very overwhelming, some of the behaviors and things like that. And yeah, definitely a 1.1 to quit. Definitely. But you know what? I stuck it out because one of the reasons was because I needed my job. You know, I gotta work, gotta make a living. But you know, and another thing, I didn't want to give up too fast because you know you kind of want to see where it's gonna go, and you know, like, and if you're gonna be able to do that. Now, look, if you quit and it's just not for you, that's okay. I just wasn't fully convinced it wasn't for me, you know? And so, and every time I was faced with like, oh, I want to quit and I just want to do something else. Whenever I was faced with that, excuse me, I would then in turn have like the next day was a good day, right? And so it was like I had good days and I had bad days. I still have good days and I still have bad days. But I guess the trick is not to let the bad days supersede the good days, right? I guess just keeping the why in front of me, and you know why I do love my job and why I do love working with the children, and what I do get out of it. I do get a lot of fulfillment out of it, and I think it's been like a wonderful ride. And so yeah, so there's that. I guess just keep your why in front of you and why you're doing it. I mean, if you're just doing it for a job and for a paycheck, you may not last too long because it does take a certain level of care and, dare I say it, love, for the children, for the families, for you to stick around, right? And so yeah, you might think about quitting, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to encourage you, don't quit. So this is for people that are already in the field. If you're thinking about quitting because it's just too hard or you're having bad days, don't quit. I mean, I think that, you know, the world needs really good teachers and people who actually care for the children, and they're just not in it for, you know, punching in a clock. And it's important because children definitely need that. Think about it. Sometimes there are children there that may not get a hug at home, and you might be the only hug that they ever get. So, yeah, just think about it that way. So yes. So if you've stuck around this long, and I'm still on my hair, I got one more piece, and I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna finish this piece. Oh gosh. And might I add that before I get into the bonus reason, might I add, I have enjoyed, like I've been at my job, I've been doing this for almost 3 years. In December, it'll be 3 years. I had some hair fall. But anyway, I've been in this business for like almost 3 years. And not all of it has been, you know, butterflies and rainbows and lilies and all that other stuff. But it has definitely been rewarding. To know that children are learning things from me has always been like an amazing feeling, because it's like, wow, I taught you that, you know? Like when my kids can identify the letter A, and, you know, A is for apple, and what color is the apple, when they can identify those things and, you know, they can tell me what they are, it just makes me so proud, because it's like I taught you that, you know? So if you don't do it for anything else, do it for that reason, you know? So yes, I am finally finished with my hair, got it all moisturized and things like that. I haven't decided if tomorrow I'm going to take it down, but anyway, let's get into the bonus, what to expect when becoming a preschool teacher. This one is a hard one, okay? You will be confronted with who you are, your strengths and your weaknesses. Buddy, that is true. So before I started this job, I tended to think that I could be a patient person. I didn't say I was patient. I said I tended to think I could be patient. No, not a strength of mine. Patience was not a strength of mine. And actually, now that I think about it, my mom wasn't very patient. My grandmother was not very patient. Neither was my other grandmother very patient. Actually, they were all pretty impatient, which is why I didn't tell them a lot of things, because I didn't know if they were going to explode on me. But anyways, but yeah, I remember one time praying to God and saying, God, give me patience. Never pray for something that you're not willing to actually have to live through. So if you pray, like for example, if I pray for patience, don't you think God is going to give me people to have to be patient with? If I pray for, strength, don't you think God's going to give me obstacles to overcome? If I pray to love like how Jesus loves, don't you think God's going to give me pretty difficult people maybe to love? Definitely. Because nothing is given to you, right? And so I feel like when I prayed for patience, that's when I got this job. But it has definitely made me confront myself and who I am. And I am not a patient person. But luckily, I have really, sorry, I thought I saw something. Luckily, I have really worked on that. And my kids have been a huge part of that because, they're little children. And unfortunately, a lot of people in society think that little children should act like adults, which is absurd. And so just breaking out of that mindset, that societal mindset, has been very difficult and very trying. And also, I don't know, and this is going to go back to, the noise and children not sitting down. I don't know who thought that being a preschool teacher meant you played with kids all day, but that is a lie. I do not just play with children all day, okay? You can't just put a bunch of toys in front of kids and expect them just to do nothing else, right? And just play, right? No, it's way more to it than that. And so it's taken a lot of strength and a lot of prayer and a lot of confronting myself to get to where I am right now. And I can say by the grace of God, I have definitely grown in this industry, and I'm very, very, very happy for it. And so, yes, so that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me. I know I was probably a little quirky throughout the whole video and things like that. That's just how I am. I might have got off track a little bit. That's also just how I am, which is why I had to write down my notes, because yeah, can't do it. I can't do it just all free and willy-nilly. But anyway, but thank you also for moisturizing my hair with me. Now I have to wait for it to dry. I think I'm going to sit in front of a fan. But again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I will see you in my next video. Thank you and bye.